offensive play, the first few possessions of the game? What did you see out there? What went right, what went wrong?
Well, what'd you think? I mean, it's kind of a loaded question, isn't it? I mean, if it stinks, it stinks. Smells bad for everybody. Smell bad for you? Yeah. I mean, what do you want me to do, make excuses for him?
And let me ask the obvious question. Last week you said, obviously, Emery's still the starter. Is he still the starter?
Yeah, yes. As I said, we have two really good quarterbacks.
We had a chance to win. We didn't get it done. We'll go back to work tomorrow, and we'll go to fixing it. And that's what we're going to do. A lot of football season left. Whole heck of a lot of football season left. And I tell you what, I saw a bunch of fighters in that locker room. A bunch of friggin' fighters on the sideline. And that's a football team that's going to continue to improve and get better. They're going to fight to improve and get better. I don't know how many games we're going to win, but I know we're going to fight.
Quarterbacks are like dogs. I mean, if you throw them a treat, then they respond. You know, they get smiles on their face, their tails wag, and then pretty soon they'll be a little more affectionate towards you as far as throwing the ball your direction. You see, and
we played some pretty good teams and beat some pretty good teams. So we're headed that direction. We got a long way to go, but tonight sure was nice.
Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, doing good.
Let me ask you, are you drunk if you're drinking before noon, Mike?
Yeah, a little behind the curtain here. We're recording early. Shane's got plans, so he said, hey, I ain't going to be on this thing unless we do it early. And I said, well, we ain't doing it without the star of the show. So had to get you on, Shane, to just share your thoughts. We got a lot of big games here in the SEC this weekend. So really just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of the matchups this weekend. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds great, brother. I enjoyed the podcast this morning. That's the first thing I did. Got up, listened to your interview. I thought that was fantastic. And, I'm ready to give my 2 cents, Mike.
Yeah, and the playoff rankings are coming out tonight. They're not coming out till about 9 o'clock at night. So I was not going to have Dragon Shane on the show at that time to discuss it. So I'll do a little editing here, and I'll break down the latest college football playoff rankings, and then we'll jump back to the show with Cousin Shane. If you stayed up late, you got to watch the latest college football playoff rankings. And if you ever needed to know, this is nothing but a sideshow for ESPN to push their product, doing it after college basketball. We had to wait for that for some damn reason. Had to do it at halftime from up there in Madison Square Garden. But we waited all that time, not for much change at the top. Georgia, number 1, of course, as expected. No other choice there. Alabama stays number 2. Despite the narrow win there at home against LSU. But again, who you going to put up in front of Alabama? So don't really have a problem with Alabama number 2. For some damn reason, Texas A&M still not in the top 10. The Aggies, number 11 in the updated college football playoff rankings. Number 15, Ole Miss. Number 17, Auburn. They took a tumble. Again, how much sense does that make? You lost to number 11 on the road. Why you're tumbling. And then, hey, good news for the Arkansas Razorbacks. You're ranked number 25 in the college football playoff rankings. But again, so you kick Mississippi State out. They were 17, I believe, last week. They lose by 3 points on the road to a team you got ranked now. I don't know. It just doesn't make any damn sense to me. Keep Arkansas maybe around 20, 21, 22. Mississippi State 23, 24. That would have made a hell of a lot more sense than me. And initial takeaway, of course, only one SEC East team, and they're the number 1 team in the nation. No other East team at the moment is ranked. And the rest of the poll of SEC teams, all from the SEC West. So once again, one more time, Georgia number 1, Alabama number 2, Texas A&M number 11, Ole Miss number 15, Auburn 17, and Arkansas 25. That's your updated SEC teams in the college football playoff rankings. All right, Shane, so those rankings are bogus. We haven't even seen them, but we can say that.
It's hard to believe Cincinnati's not in the top 25 anymore. No, I'm just kidding. They done crowned them, I bet. So we'll find out tonight. It's probably best I'm not on that part of the pod. And that's why I wanted to start off with the early, man. It's 11:36 right now, a.m. And we, just in case somebody gets fired or something like that, and you're like, why the hell didn't they start the show with that? Well, as much as we like to talk about, contracts and new, nothing has happened at this moment. I mean, I saw Scott Frost renegotiated, and they said, "Hey, man, we're paying you a little too much here. Let's give you this, and we'll keep you for another year." So I saw that, but is there any chance? Let me ask you, Mike, because that's one of the names I keep floating around. Prior to him going to Nebraska, there was a lot of people talking about it in Florida when the Gainesville job opened up.
Right.
Is there any chance that we see Scott Frost as bad as he's done in Nebraska? Is there any chance that he somehow lands some miracle job here in the SEC?
Well, it depends on how bad he wants to be an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, Shane, because I think that's the only option. I mean, he's still probably got a little bit of buzz, not much, but a little from his time at UCF. But maybe at the end of the day, that's kind of like the speed he's at is whatever league that is. I mean, he needs to be at a lower tier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I just saw it. I saw it on my ticker this morning. I thought we'd bring it up a little bit just because I have heard some names. Mm-hmm. I've even seen some Gator fans say, well, hell, we'll try them out.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Shane, that is somewhat SEC related, I don't have the names in front of me, but I believe he fired 4 or 5 assistant coaches. Yeah. Scott Frost did. Clearly, we've seen Dan Mullen. He had to fire 2 guys this week. The Texas Tech job has come open, and they've already hired a guy, Shane. They're hiring a Baylor assistant coach, and here it is. What is the date here? November 7th, November 8th. We got all these changes coming, and it all has to do, Shane, with the early signing period, and it has just accelerated this entire process. And because these recruits, we're 5 weeks away from the signing period. They need to know who they're playing for. They need to know, who's going to be there, who's not. So it is just incredible how fast this thing has accelerated. And I think that for a program like LSU that obviously has a head coaching job, you got to have a coach by that early signing period. There's no way about it. So I think that's good news if you're looking for a coach, if you're looking for a coordinator. These things are getting done at warp speed, and the moves are going to be coming fast here at the last month of the season. You know what?
Absolutely, and that's what you're seeing here with a lot of bad programs making these moves early, like you said, because obviously your team's not where it needs to be, and how do you repair that? You do that with recruiting, and you got to get some folks in there. It kind of surprises me, believe it or not, Mike, with this LSU situation that we haven't heard some real strong rumors. It seems like they'd want to get some name and some buzz out there, who's going to be there. But, LSU's not one of those programs that I mean, you never want to take a year off from recruiting, but if there's any program that could still put together a nice little recruiting pack, you would think it would be the LSU Tigers just by the name alone. So I guess there's maybe not as much urgency at that program as others, but we expect a hiring soon as the season's over, right?
Yeah, I think if they're going to get an active head coach, I would think the day after that guy's regular season is done.
Yeah.
They'll be announcing it right around that time. I mean, it'll be very, very quick.
It'll be quick.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because recruiting is right around the corner, so absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of the rankings, Shane, we haven't even seen them, but we know who's number one. It's them Georgia Bulldogs for good reason. And they are coming down to Rocky Top. And we are in a number of text threads, a lot of Twitter threads. These Vols are high on the hog, so to speak. They're smelling an upset. And this is one Cousin Shane's had circled for weeks saying, well, them Bulldogs, they haven't had to outscore anybody yet. So I don't know. Thoughts on the matchup, Shane? I keep getting, people wanting to know what are the odds, what are the chances, huge upset. Maybe Georgia is overlooking the Vols. I don't know. What are you looking into this weekend? And I know, I'm not trying to spoil any picks here, but I think it would be a massive, massive upset, of course, if Georgia were to go down. But, what are your thoughts on this matchup heading into it?
Mike, here's the deal, man. All right, I'm so bad at this. I do it at every game. I do it every year. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Doesn't matter who's on the field. At some point, you convince yourself that you have a shot, and it's not just a Tennessee thing. I think that's at every college football program. You're going into Saturday and you're like, you know what? I think we could beat these boys. Now, I know that's a tall glass of water for the Georgia Bulldogs. Hell, I've been singing their praises since day one. I've been on this show many a time saying this is the year that they probably win that national championship. But then part of you is like, you know what? Clemson does suck. You go back to week one. And then you're like, okay, well, let's see. UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, no. Arkansas, when you caught them at the wrong time. I think the thing with Arkansas, here's what I'm looking at, just as a Tennessee homer for a second, Mike. Got my big orange glasses on, drinking my big orange Kool-Aid, and I'm saying, you caught Arkansas at their weakest moment, man. They went through Texas A&M. They were battling some injuries. They just, they made a lot of boneheaded mistakes in that game. Yeah. Got away with it. They go down to Auburn. I'm not saying it was just a blowout, because it wasn't. Auburn hung in that game for quite some time. Then Georgia took it away. Then you look at Kentucky, one of their closest fought ball games, in Florida. And the thing that I'm seeing with these teams over and over and over is there's no offense, man. Well, did you watch the Tennessee Vols? That wasn't our problem last week. The problem was our defense. We had no problems moving up and down the field. In fact, we had like 2 or 3 missed drives, but we capitalized on every other drive since that point. So there's a part of me that says, yes, we got a shot. But then I got to be realistic, Mike. I got to be realistic. You can't say that and then look over here and look at the greatest defense to ever play college football. And I'm saying that again, Mike. I'm going back in time. I don't care about the Miami days. I don't care about the Oklahoma days. I don't care about the Nebraska days. This is the best damn defense that has ever played college football, and it's deep. It's not topical, man. This is a deep roster. If they miss somebody, there's 2 others that are popping up and making plays. That's just how impressive this defense is. They're able to score at will. But then, again, part of me is like, well, they've never played an offense quite like us. I'm not saying we're gimmicky, Mike, but I am saying it's one of those type of games like you remember Georgia Tech in years past that you just, it's like, shit, why did we sign up the wishbone here, because you don't see it all the time. And again, there's a lot more great. You see it with Ole Miss, you see it with Mississippi State, but it's still not quite like Tennessee, as quick as they run plays and just how fluid their offense is hitting. And boy, is it hitting. That's the thing, Mike. You're getting the best Tennessee offense that you've seen all season long, going against the best defense that you've seen all season long. So, yeah, I'm excited about the game. I'm not going in with realistic expectations of winning this thing, but there's that little guy in the back that's saying there's still a chance. It's like Jim Carrey on Dumb and Dumber, so you're telling me there's a chance.
Well, I like your comments there about the Tennessee's pace of play, because that is something that Mark Stoops said after that game. And we all know Mark Stoops' defensive background, proud tradition of having a solid defense there in Lexington. They just got shredded. And the thing he said was, there's just no way to prepare for this. I mean, we have our scout guys trying to do their best to go at that pace, but it's something that you work on in the off season. And then once you get into the grind of the season, it's not like you're spending a day every week preparing for Tennessee that's coming up in November. It's just not possible. Right. So this is something that, Georgia has not faced Ole Miss, like you said. They've obviously not faced Tennessee yet. So I'm not saying it's the kryptonite of the Georgia defense, because I'm right there with you. I don't think they have a kryptonite, but this will be certainly a test for them to answer. But on the flip side, I'm concerned if I'm Tennessee about protecting Hendon Hooker in this game. Kentucky got after him. Alabama got after him. This offensive line is, I don't want to call him a weak link because the offense is playing so well. You can't say it's a weak unit, but going up against some of the better competition they faced, they have struggled this season. That would be an issue for me. But let me ask you about the defense, Shane, because that was the worst performance we've seen all year from Tennessee against Kentucky. So is it, you think coaches have kind of found a way to exploit it, or do you think they can bounce back and be a little bit, Alabama had a lot of luck with them as well. They forced some turnovers, though. That was critical to staying in the game there with Alabama. Now they're playing back on Rocky Top, CBS game of the week. Any concern on your side that Tennessee's defense has kind of been discovered here, more or less?
Well, I don't want to say discovered, Mike, but we're just thin as shit, man.
Right.
I mean, we can't rotate. We're not rotating like Georgia. We're not rotating like Kentucky can. We're not that deep right now, and I think that's when it's really starting to show, especially when you do have an offense that's scoring quick. Or what I'm more afraid of this week is what happens when we go 3 and out and that defense comes back. I mean, that's always going to be the kryptonite for Tennessee. It's not their offense. We know their offense is going to be able to move the ball, get points on the board, but it's that defense after being on the field, especially last week, 50, almost the entire game, they sat there on the field. So, I mean, obviously that's a big concern. And I hope Coach didn't do anything with those boys. Just let them sit in an ice bath for 6 days, get ready for the Georgia Bulldogs. But the part of me that likes this matchup is the fact that, say what you want, man, but Georgia and Kentucky are very similar in offense. They love the trench warfare. They love running the ball. So this is something, I mean, you want to talk about game plan, game script, you're going to be pretty much scripted up for the Georgia Bulldogs. You know exactly what they're going to want to do. They want to control the line of scrimmage. They're going to want to run the ball and then pass off of it. So that's exactly what the formula was for the Kentucky Wildcats. So that part I'm not so concerned about, Mike. My biggest concern is when you look at Tennessee, you look at that Alabama game because you're trying to compare teams. I don't know about you, but that's the way I look at it. I'm like, when you look at this schedule that we went through, who's the closest matchup? And I look at Alabama, and the thing that I didn't like about that game is Alabama with little to no help up front. I'm talking no Jordan Davis. Forget the fact that they got the greatest man that's playing college football right now. But the fact that they were able to control the front with 3 or 4 guys, they gave our offensive line a fit. They made us one-dimensional. You look at the games that Tennessee's offense just seems unstoppable. It's unstoppable when we can do run and pass. Now, the problem is you're going against the Georgia Bulldogs, and I don't want some of these second down, these third and short plays just thrown away. Just give me plays. It's going to probably be one-dimensional again because you're not going to be able to run the ball on Georgia. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I think it would be, as strange as it sounds, Shane, I don't think it would be wise for Tennessee to try to win this game in a shootout, even though that's kind of their style of play, because you're just not going to put 30 points up or more on Georgia.
Right.
I mean, you've got to win this one in the 20s, and I think you got to let Georgia do what they're going to do. You got to let them pound it. You just cannot let them hit you over the top. And they have one of the worst offenses in the red zone when it comes to converting touchdowns in the SEC, in the country even. So I think that's what you got to do, man. You got to hope and pray you can limit them to field goals, get some turnovers. But again, if you try to win a shootout, Tennessee's explosive as hell. But how many times are they going to get the Georgia Bulldogs to slip? I got to think it's got to be under 4 or 5 times you're gonna hit the Bulldogs for a huge play. You know what?
Absolutely. You got to be creative, Mike. This is one of those situations that I expect more designed quarterback runs. I mean, if you're looking at that front, you're gonna have to create more blockers, and you do that by taking away running backs, and you do that by letting your quarterback be the running back. So being creative, and if I'm telling you, if Heupel showed you anything, he can be creative. He can come in with a game plan and put Tennessee balls in the best possible place. It's just it's got to be a flawless game, Mike. There can't be any drops. you gotta do your job, and that means that offensive line. That means you got to hold them a second longer if you can. I'd rather you get a holding penalty than let the thing get blown up and kill my quarterback.
Right.
So that's just one of those games that they're just going to have to play above their pay grade, and the stars got to be aligned. But man, games like this happen, brother. So it's Tuesday, man. You know what I'm saying? So hell yeah, I'm convinced we got
By
a shot.
Friday,
Now
you'll
that
be
may
picking them to pull the upset.
I know, right? I feel a Morristown Honda one coming up, but no, I am realistic. This is a freaking great Georgia Bulldog team. The thing that we need is them to just overlook us. We need them to come in similar to that Florida South Carolina game and just say, hey, we just show up, we'll win this thing. That's what we need. What we don't need is players out here saying, well, they ain't played us yet. It's like, no, shut up. What are you doing? No media this week, all right? Don't be the propaganda that Georgia needs. They need no help in winning this game.
Most coaches say you should do what you do best, regardless of the opponent. Obviously, on paper, Georgia's a better team than you guys and better at what they do than anybody else. What's the temptation like to get outside of the box to do something different this game versus just doing what you guys have done all year schematically?
We change every week, based on what you see from the other side of the ball, personnel matchups, put your kids in the best position, you prepare in a great way, have a great week of practice and finish it the right way, and then go let it go play on Saturday. You play every game 10 times, it unfolds differently every single time. So prepare in a great way and then react to how it's different. And, I thought last week there's some things in our game plan that were different, and our kids adjusted extremely well in all three phases of the game. There's lots of things that we can do better from last week too, but Georgia's a great opponent. Our guys are going to be ready to go compete for 60 minutes. I have no question about that with this group. I love competing with this team.
Georgia in the front seven, they like to stand up, sometimes go from a two-point stance, move around, try to confuse the offensive line outside of just being really good to begin with. What have you seen from that unit on tape, and what's the challenge for your big guys up front?
It starts with the personnel. They're big, long, physical, athletic. They play with speed. They do a great job of retracing on perimeter screens. You see that show up. When you think you got space, it closes down pretty quick. I don't care if that's in the core or out on the perimeter. They're able to rotate a lot of guys too. The depth of their football team is a big part of their success. Being able to play guys, essentially almost in 50% of the ball game and rotate through. For us, we got to do a great job of getting hat on hat. We got to be physical. That's on the perimeter. That's in the core. We got to do a great job of communication too in their third down package.
Javonte, they really haven't been in any close games, Georgia, since maybe Clemson earlier in this year. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you guys will think about, that, hey, maybe we can, besides the tempo, maybe we can put some pressure on them that they haven't experienced in a while?
Yes, extremely. So, we most definitely talked about that today. This is probably the first time Georgia was going to see an offense that moves as fast as we do. And, it's just about us going out there and doing what we do best. We got to make sure we have all the small little details. And like I always preach details. Coach Burns and Coach Hype, they on us all the time about making sure that we locked in. We doing our job on the field. So we most definitely think we can go out there and turn some eyes this week. So
most players in college football may go their whole career without playing against a number one team. In the SEC, it's routine. Do you like the fact that you're in a conference where that is routine?
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm here. Like that's, back when I was 16, 17, and I decided I was going to come to University of Tennessee, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to knock some number ones off and become number one. Obviously, that's not exactly how it went, but that's what we plan to do, knock a number one off. And that's not a billboard statement or anything like that. I think everybody who plays a number one team wants to knock them off. So that's what we're going to do, and it's just a matter of execution, doing the little things right, and doing it consistently.
Herbie, in terms of trying to compare this Tennessee offense to others that you've faced before, is it most comparable to maybe a Gus Malzahn offense in terms of tempo? And I guess, how do you go about preparing your scout team to run that throughout the week?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's Gus Malzahn. Very different. It's most like Missouri when Heupel was there.
If you remember, we played Missouri, Heupel there. We had some games against them while he was there, and we've gone back and studied those tapes and looked through those tapes. And he's evolved, and he's different in some ways, and added more wrinkles as wrinkles have come to his offense, and does a really good job of being aggressive, of keeping the pressure on. In terms of how we get the scout team to run it, we're very fortunate that we have an abundance of scouts. This week, we've had a tremendous look between being a little healthier at wideout. Jackson's gone over there, Dom's gone over there, George is taking some reps. All of a sudden, that lineup at wideout has looked a little better from a standpoint of competitive reps, where before we didn't have many guys that could give us a look at receiver because we were so down. But we've had the scout team preparing for this for weeks. We've done a lot of work to get them ready for this. And, very similar to when you do a triple option, you better have a plan because it's so different and outside the norm.
Kirby, I know Tennessee has hit a couple of a lot of pass plays with its perimeter blocking to free some of those receivers up. But on the balls that they hit down the field, how are those receivers, can you tell, coming so open? Are they scripting things where they set you up and all of a sudden punch one, or do they just take a random shot? Because they've had receivers obviously running free a lot this year.
They're fast, and you don't always get lined up properly. I mean, it's very unique, guys. It's like you'd ask the question, how come you can't stop the triple option? Well, it's different. You don't face it every day. I mean, they got guys wide open because people have eye violations. I mean, they look at the wrong thing. Sometimes they don't even see the wide receiver. And I know that's hard to believe, but their splits are clear out on the sideline. Half of college football is playing condensed formations now, and everybody's in a teacup where everybody's right next to the ball. And now all of a sudden these guys got two guys outside the numbers. And I mean, I've seen guys on tape not lined up, trying to get a call. I mean, it happens to everybody. So it's not like it's not on tape. And it worries you that it can happen to you. You want to make them earn what they get. And there's a lot of plays that they've gotten on people off the bus. And you're trying to avoid that. And they've done a tremendous job through tempo of being explosive.
And a real quick follow, do they stretch the field about as wide as, because Coach Stoops was talking before they played Tennessee, just how wide they line up and they punch a lot of runs out of that because you're so spread out.
Yeah, no, make no mistake about it. They're a tremendous run game team. They run the ball, crazy number of average runs per game. They wear you down. They wear you down. They wear you down. They got good backs. They're physical O-line. They're heavy. It's not an air raid team, guys. It's a shot team and a pound you team, and they spread you out. They make you declare defenders, and they want you to declare, is he in or is he out? And at the end of the day, they make it hard to defend, but it's tough. You just got to have a good plan, and you got to execute the plan.
Now, how about this matchup, Shane? Big one in the SEC West. Texas A&M going on the road to Ole Miss. It's going to be an ESPN night game. You got to know those fans are going to be rowdy down there in Oxford. College game day is on location. That just adds hype to the contest. And something that I hit on the last episode, we still have not seen anyone really emerge to be the Heisman front runner. And we know Matt Corral firmly entrenched in that discussion. But I think he needs another big-time game here, nationally televised, going up against probably the nation's number 2 defense here that just limited Bo Nix and this Auburn team to, what was it, three points in the game. Mm-hmm. If Matt Corral has himself a huge performance here, that's clearly going to be the recipe for Ole Miss. I don't even know if you call it an upset. It's basically a pick'em type game, but this is, I think, how you get back into that Heisman frontrunner discussion after dropping the Auburn game. And I think it's all there for the Ole Miss Rebels, while, again, the Aggies, man, they're still fighting for their SEC West lives. Alabama certainly looks beatable, if you bring your A game. So Texas A&M's got to keep winning. They can still make it a trip to Atlanta to face the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game. This is going to be one of the best games of the entire weekend in the country, don't you think?
Absolutely, man. This and it's just, you're catching the teams at the right time. I truly believe Texas A&M is just golly, if they could redo a few things, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, we're talking about them like we're talking about Georgia or Alabama. These guys, I mean, you need Alabama to slip up one time and then they're in an SEC championship. That's the kind of team we got here. And you do that by playing teams like Ole Miss and not making it a ball game. Don't do like you did in weeks past and let a team stick around, because you let Lane Kiffin stay within a possession or two of you, then you might as well just call it quits, because he'll find a way to get those scores. That's the way Ole Miss plays. Matt Corral seems like he's getting healthier. The defense seems like they stepped up last week. I mean, that's one of those X factors. Hell, if you got the Ole Miss defense stepping up, then they can beat just about anybody. But the fact of the matter is, Texas A&M defense is legit. They're going to have their hands full this week, but this is going to be probably the toughest defense they've played this year, man.
Mm-hmm. Now, if Ole Miss does have success, which, who knows if they will or not, going up against this defense, what's the recipe, do you think, for the Aggies to – I'd hate to think you want to get in a shootout with Matt Corral, although we've seen Zach Calzada do it with Bryce Young, and he outdueled him. But last week, Malik Willis, who a lot of people got as a top NFL draft pick, I mean, they made him look pretty average. And now you got Zach Calzada coming into town.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And can you even run him? I mean, he's getting banged up left and right. We all know he's a warrior, but this one feels like you got to lean on that offensive line, that running game, limit Matt Corral's touches. That's got to be the key to success for the Aggies, don't you think?
Well, yeah. That's obvious. Or that, or get Calzada hurt, and just let him come back and win. Did you see that? Did you see that? I can't remember who put it out. I think it was like Fox or something like that. And they said, they're talking about he got hurt during Alabama when it was close. He comes back and wins that game. He gets hurt when it's 3-3 at Auburn. He comes back and destroys them. So the key is just let your quarterback get hurt at some point during this game so he can win. No, I don't think that's the answer, Mike. I think you're right. I think you're finding that running game. That's the key with Texas A&M. It's just when you got all your running backs hitting, it just opens up those passing lanes. You want to keep Calzada off the grass, man. I mean, that's the whole goal here. And I'm not saying Ole Miss doesn't have a tenacious defensive front, but there's no reason that Calzada should be running for his life during this game, Mike. Mm-hmm. I think you rely on the running game, open up, get Watermeyer, more involved, something like that, and just let your defense do their thing. They're going to keep Ole Miss off the field, but again, you keep him around long enough. Lane Kiffin, say what you want, the guy's a hell of an offensive mind, man. He's going to find ways to put even the best defense in vulnerable positions if you allow it. So right. Just go to work. That's what Texas A&M. You are a better team. Go out there, get to work.
And if I'm the Aggies, I'm studying that Auburn tape, Shane, when they played Ole Miss, because it was long, methodical drives. Mm-hmm. It was the Tank Bigsby show. It was play action. It was running Bo Nix in the red zone to punch these drives home. And Isaiah Spiller, currently third in the SEC in rushing. He is having another outstanding season. We already knew he was outstanding, but I think it was fair last year to say, well, they got this. Remember, it was the Maroon Goons. They had this elite offensive line. Now that line's a work in progress, yet Isaiah Spiller's still getting it done. I think that's a credit to just how outstanding of a player he is.
That and limit Matt Corral. You when he doesn't run effectively, they don't win, Mike. So how do you do that? You obtain pressure outside. You do all kinds of different creative ways. And I have no doubt in my mind that Elko's going to find ways to keep pressure on Matt Corral. But that's the thing. You limit his running capabilities, then you make him a little bit more one-dimensional, and that's what you want. You want this a passing game with those receivers, because I like my odds if it does that.
Mm-hmm. Jim, but what is it about your teams that play better as the game goes on, fourth quarter, and as the season rolls on as well?
Well, I do think it's a lot of the ways we practice and we set practice up, and we give a lot in the season, then we kind of grind down to what we are and who we are, and I think we always practice good on good. I think we practice good on Tuesdays and Wednesdays during the game weeks. I mean, I think you only get better playing good people. And we got good people on the other side for us to block, to run against, and then our line against our defensive line. Those are battles, and we were talking about last week, Mike's man, Tuesday and Wednesday last week practice. Whew, it was loud. It was loud. I mean, them guys getting after each other, and I think they make each other better, and they know it. I think they're learning to compete, too. I think you're learning to play the next play and not dwell on the scoreboard, not dwell on circumstances, not dwell on anything. What can I control? And that's how I play in my mindset for the next play, and I think we're learning that and we preach that, and we try to practice that way, start fast, and how we finish practice and the things we do, and hopefully, the kids are buying into it, and it's paying off, not just because of what we're saying, but what they're doing. And our assistant coach is doing a good job.
I got to squeeze in one so my boss knows I'm here. When you
I
saw,
ain't got to answer.
That's fine. I'll still ask.
Strike three.
There you go. When you saw, hopefully 2 more outs, when you saw Zach recruiting him out of Georgia, you saw his arm strength, of course. Did you realize how tough he was at that point?
He was very competitive, and I know when he was banged up his senior year, and he took a team that didn't have a lot of great players to the state semifinals on his back a lot and playing against them and getting banged and knocked around and did some things. And you saw a competitor, but you don't really realize a guy's toughness till you get a hold of him and coach him yourself. And all characteristics of a guy you don't know and his intelligence till you really coach him. But you saw a great competitor with great arm talent.
How do you approach this with your guys being still very much in the division race with a couple of
Don't worry about
games going?
You got one thing to do. Worry about practice today and get better. The fundamentals of practice today, solely focus on Ole Miss. Play one day. You got 3 one-game seasons. When you get to November and you're relevant, it's a playoff. So you forget about everything else. 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 practice at a time, 1 play at a time. And that's that simple. Don't worry about nothing.
Hey, Coach, how do you best describe Isaiah's running style? I mean, he just seems to always find yards.
He does. I mean, he's very natural, sees his scheme. He's learning to be more vertical and physical in his running. Very diverse, great eyes, cut back, can stick his foot in the ground, jump cut very well, physical. Just a great competitor, man. Just a great competitor. Productive. And at the end of the day, it's what you want running backs. Are they productive? I've seen guys, phenomenal talents and all that. You look at the day, man, we should have been just. They're not as productive. He's productive. At the end of the day, all players. What's your talent level? What's your production level? The way I look at them. Here's my talent. Here's my production. Is it above my talent? Is it below my talent? Why is it below it? What raises it above it? And his is above. And I don't mean he's very talented. I don't mean that, but he's productive, man.
When you look at A&M's defense, is there any specific unit that stands out to you, or is it just kind of a whole team effort sort of thing?
It really looks like when you watch NFL defenses, where basically everybody's a really good player, that looks right. A lot of times you watch, you go to play somebody, you can tell right away after a few series, okay, this player shows up as, a weak link, or this player is short, or, they got a small D tackle, something like that, that this is, I was watching it thinking like, okay, Jimbo, figured out from Coach Saban, recruit the best defensive players in the country, get them on your team, and, helps you be a really good head coach. And that's what these guys have, really, really special players that are dominant.
Playing with Matt Corral, is this a situation where time and rest between games are allowing him to get better, or is it just going to be that way the rest of the year with back-to-back-to-back games left on the schedule?
I hope not. The problem is it's not like there's a bye, sitting in there. So he kind of has re-aggravated it, every Saturday. So, I think this week will be very similar to last week, but hopefully eventually that's not the case.
And of course, with game day coming to town, if it was up to you, who would be the celebrity guest picker?
Well, it'd be Katy Perry. That's a no-brainer if you read my Twitter. But I just like when things have worked before, like when coaches come up with plays and they want to run a play. I said, okay, well, can you show me it being run before? Well, I've seen this script before in this movie where Katy Perry shows up and Ole Miss wins. So I was on the other side of it. So worked before, let's do it again.
Now, how about the Battle of the Boot, Shane? This is a big one. Arkansas on the road at LSU. This is a heated rivalry between these two. And LSU, man, it just doesn't know what you're going to get week in and week out. 1 week they're getting blown out. The next week they're going toe-to-toe with the mighty Crimson Tide on the road. I made a big deal out of Arkansas being a favorite in Baton Rouge. I tried to look it up. I cannot remember the last time that has been the case. But, Arkansas just won a very heated matchup against Mississippi State. And again, this is one where it looks like it matches, it comes up at a perfect time for the Razorbacks because you're getting on the right side of things. KJ Jefferson's playing outstanding. Traylon Burks is heating up. You got Dominique Johnson, your running back now, that best performance of the season, and he was already having a good season. Yet you got to feel like LSU, that laid it all on the line. They played balls to the wall, but just came up short. Can they get up like that 2 weeks in a row? I don't know if they can. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Well, I think too, like you said, timing's important with this game. You've got the LSU Tigers that went to Alabama and almost pulled up an upset. What's worse than that is falling short and watching that film and realizing you had opportunities. It's a little bit of a hangover. I see it with Kentucky right now. A lot of Kentucky fans are just kind of hung over from that loss. They've had a couple losses this year, but this is when you play these close games and it comes down to final drives and you just didn't put it away, then those bleed into your next week. Well, here you got Arkansas Razorbacks that didn't play a flawless game last week, but they again kind of got back to their identity, running the ball, getting Burks involved. That's the key. That's the key to their success. It's Mississippi State's a tough team to strategize for. I mean, you look at some of the games they go against. When you got a quarterback that's throwing 50 times a game, you're not used to that all the time. So, but they did find a way to get a victory there. They stayed healthy, and they're going into this week, I think, on an upward swing. So I think that's the problem here is we got two teams going two different ways.
Right.
And I just think the momentum right now is just all in Arkansas's court.
And I don't know if you've seen this, Shane. I know we like to poke fun at Brad Johnson and all the shots of him on the field. The backup down there at LSU's Garrett Nussmeier. He's the son of Doug Nussmeier. He's been SEC coordinator. Now he's an NFL coordinator. And apparently Doug Nussmeier called in there and got mad at the LSU coaches saying, why is my son not playing? So Coach O's going to play the backup now. But it's like, what is this, Pee-wee football? I mean... I know Max Johnson didn't have a great game, but the fact we got parents calling in here and wondering why their son's not playing and the coaches giving into it, I mean, maybe that's got nothing to do with this game, but to me that it shows there's issues there behind the scenes for sure.
Yeah, you got a coach. Coach O sounds like he doesn't want to make any enemies on his way out. You know what I'm saying? And that's. You can't have that. You can't. Who gives a shit who your backup quarterback is, Mike? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be coaching this kid next year. I mean, so I don't care. I want to put the best athletes out there on the field, and I want to try to win a game. So yeah, that's ridiculous, and the fact that that's noise that we have to deal with going into this game. I mean, a rivalry game makes me want to put even more money on the Arkansas Razorbacks right now, man. They're more worried about the damn parent cam than they are who's winning this fucking thing. So get out of here with that nonsense.
Coach, where did the bowling ball come from, and why is it named Larry?
I love that question. So I sent Pat Doherty out to find a bowling ball. And he went to somewhere and he said, man, they're expensive. And so I said, well, go down the bowling alley. They may have one or two laying around, And so he bought Larry for $20. I did, actually. And it was great because when he brought the bowling ball back, it had the name Larry on it. And I thought it was awesome, and so obviously I told Hunter before the game that if we win, we're going to bring Larry out, and so that's where we got it. And Larry was purchased for $20. And the thing about that is, I said it was like a Super Bowl for me personally and our team. I don't know what a Super Bowl feeling is. I don't. I know what winning the Rose Bowl is like, and I know what playing in a national championship game and those things are like. My opinion is about our football team. And if you were in our locker room, it can't get a whole lot better than what it did. Now, that's not the goal, but that was one of the goals. And when we reach a goal, we're going to celebrate it.
Coach, a lot of historic games between these two programs. Will you talk at all about wanting to bring another trophy home this week? Will you talk about any of those past contests that we all know about?
I don't know that we'll have a lot of conversation about the past games. We certainly do. There's a trophy, and we'd like to have it. And certainly we know LSU would too, but I believe Basil designed it. I think he designs everything, but he designed a trophy. It's a wonderful trophy. It was here 2 of my 3 years when I was here before. Very heavy trophy. But yeah, we'll talk about the boot and probably show a picture of it and things of that nature. We'd like to have it.
It's kind of a stunning stat from that Alabama LSU game. LSU held them to 6 yards rushing. Well, I wonder what you thought about that. And also, when I saw the video of you guys calling the Hogs, you were lifting that bowling ball like it was. I haven't bowled in a while, but I think they're pretty heavy. Did you just been working out a lot, or?
Well, all right. So you asked me about what first?
First it was about LSU hold Alabama to 6 rushing yards.
Yeah, the rushing part of it. It gets skewed when the sacks and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Sacks count in college against the rushing stats, not necessarily in the league, in an NFL. But, yeah, I mean, they were all over the place now. They played hard. They played extremely well, and they flew around the ball. They played excited. And I think someone asked me, the first question about Coach O, he had his team. They were rolling. As far as the
bowling ball, you were looking like it was nothing.
Oh, the bowling ball. I tore this, what do you call it, bicep. I tore my bicep muscle. I was doing that silly Yes Sir video at Georgia, and I went down to pick up Lucy like this, and I was going to, she's a bulldog, so I was going to put her in the video. And when I did, it just popped right through here, like a 22 going off, it really did, but I had to get the video out, so my arm was shaking. But anyway, I was a little concerned about lifting the bowling ball because it's heavy, because I've torn this bicep, but I was on adrenaline. It wasn't like it was a 100-pound ball, I don't know how much it weighs, but it seemed to be pretty easy.
This week we're going to let Max start, but we're going to put in Garrett. Garrett's going to get some plays. I already talked to him, and we're going to let the best man win. And, it's time to let Garrett play. He's a great quarterback. I like Max a lot. Max is still our starting quarterback, but I will give Garrett a chance. I talked to him. He wants to play, so he will play against Arkansas. And the guy that ends up playing the best is going to play the most.
With Garrett and Max, you kind of mean like they'll split reps in practice and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or in the game, they'll kind of both share time and then one will take over at some point?
Both. They'll split reps in practice. And we're going to play both Max and Garrett. Max is going to start, but I'm going to give Garrett significant snaps at the beginning of the game, and then we'll see how it goes.
Ed, how much will the Max and Garrett split be the theme going forward for the quarterback situation?
Yeah, it'll be 50-50 in practice. We'll let them split it, and we haven't decided. Jake and I talked about it this morning. We haven't decided exactly how we're going to do it in the game. It may be first quarter, second quarter, maybe a couple series. This series, it all depends how practice goes, depends how the game plan is. But we'll see. We'll see. If Max plays better than Garrett, he's going to be the starter. If Garrett plays better than Max, he's going to be the starter. We'll let them battle it out.
Ed, you talked last week, I believe, about Garrett has he had the opportunity to redshirt or the opportunity to play more. In the discussion, just talk about the discussions with him to go forward with his plan. How much he's eager to try to play, because he could end up burning the whole year.
Yeah,
obviously.
he was mad. He was mad he didn't play. And I talked to his father, Doug, who I respect a lot. And we had talked on Thursday. They had to be snaps where they were significant, and that if we put him in, he's going to play the rest of the year. And I didn't feel that it was time to throw him in there for a couple of plays and then us burn his redshirt year. I didn't want to do that to him. And he came in the office yesterday and was adamant about playing. His father called Jake and said, listen, hey, here's the plan. He wants to play. Let him play. So that's what we're doing. So obviously, it looks like right now he may not redshirt. It all depends on how the game goes, but that's his choice, and that's what he wants to do.
Coach, not a lot of people had seen the animation from you on the sideline Saturday. Is this what you were talking about, the weight lifted off, and is it just you having more fun? And why haven't you been like that previous to this year, do you think?
That's a good question. You know, just going into that stadium, there had been so much made of the statement that I made, and they were going to do this to me and all that stuff. I just wanted to compete, and I love competing. And you know, I don't take things said about me personally. I don't take that lightly. I can't say nothing about it, but I can do something about it. And neither I or our team was intimidated by anybody, and I mean anybody, on the sideline of Alabama or in the stadium. We went there to win. No disrespect to them. Great coaches, great team, great fans, but we were not going to go in there and get intimidated. So that's what you saw.
Ed, I know you started your coaching career basically at Arkansas as an assistant strength coach 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Could you have imagined back then, what were you hoping that your career would be? And it could, obviously, I'm sure you're just looking for a foot in the door, right, at that point. Could you have imagined what this journey would be like, good and bad, you know, throughout your career?
Think about this. I went there. I made $25 every 2 weeks. That was my check. I lived in the dormitory. And I remember going, man, you get to eat, so I can go and eat. And then I walked there on Saturday morning, and I saw something white, a big bowl of white stuff. And I asked my partner, I said, what is that? He said, that's gravy. I said, no, gravy ain't white where I'm from. But, you know, it was a great experience. My first time in Division I football. They let me be a strength coach. I was assistant strength coach, really a GA. Then Coach Hatfield brought me on the field. I worked with Coach Hatfield and Coach Goldsmith. And then they taught me how to break down film. I was always there early in the morning. I worked with Coach Hatfield on special teams. It was a wonderful experience. And that experience at Arkansas got me to be a G at Miami because those guys knew Coach Johnson in Tuberville. So it was a great connection. It was a great springboard. No, I never dreamed all this stuff was happening. I'm very thankful. And I loved Arkansas. I really had. Dean Weber hired me there. He's still a good friend of mine. Coach Hatfield will come have breakfast with me when we go up there. I made a lot of great friends. It's a great place.
All right. Last game I wanted to ask you about, Shane, here. Again, in the SEC West, we've got two teams. Reel in a little bit here. Mississippi State at Auburn. Both teams coming off a loss. Both teams, you know, I thought they had a really good chance to win last weekend heading into those matchups. And, you know, this is a pivotal game here, Shane, because so much promise for the Auburn Tigers. So much, Mississippi State fans were feeling themselves too. I think each of these, you know, their season's got an opportunity to go in a little bit of a tailspin if they can't win this weekend on the Plains. It's going to be tough for Mississippi State, but hell, they've won at Kyle Field. They damn near almost won at Arkansas last week. They have been playing really strong on the road. What are your thoughts on this matchup, Mississippi State at Auburn?
Yeah, well, clearly both of them disappointed off last week. So who rebounds? You know, right. Does the young staff there at Auburn get these boys ready? I mean, it does. I think it helps that it's at home. Mm-hmm. The Plains is always a tough place to play, but you know, you still there's going to be a little bit of a hangover factor, I would imagine, and that's one thing you can't have with the Pirate because he will punish you for that if you come into a game not game ready for the Mississippi State Bulldog. They're going to pass all over you. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, you're going to look up and damn quarterback's going to be 48 of 52 and 400 yards, and your defense has been on the field the entire time. So that's what you can't have. And how you do that, Mike, you go back to Auburn football. You go back to what worked against Ole Miss. Running the ball. Mm-hmm. Run the ball. You get Tank going. You get this offensive line. It builds momentum, man, even as an offensive line. If you're an offensive lineman and your running back's getting about 6-7 yards a clip, you know, you go in that huddle, you're pumped up, man. You're ready to get back out there because you're controlling that defensive front. And you got to be careful with Mississippi State because if you go in thinking that you can just do that, They will come out and they will punch you in the mouth. They got a good defense. They got a good offense. They just fell short a few times this year. You can look at that record and say, well, they're not that good. No, Mississippi State's a top 25 program, Mike. And if you go in thinking that they're not, you're going to lose.
Yeah, as good as Mississippi State is defending the run, that's kind of what Arkansas did last weekend. They stayed committed to it, and it paid off there. Like I said, Dominique Johnson had himself a big game. That's got to be the recipe for Auburn, getting Tank, getting Hunter, getting Shivers, getting them going. Mm-hmm. That has got to be the key to this one, I think, for the Auburn Tigers. Whereas I wanted to ask you, any kickers we could send down there to Mississippi State? They got an open tryout down there, and hell, if they had a kicker, they would have won last week. You know what?
Absolutely, man. I mean, well, you think about the games that Mississippi State has actually lost. You think the Memphis, that was a screwed game. Yeah. LSU was a one-possession game. Mm-hmm. Alabama was the only one that really blew them out. Right. But short of that, they've been competitive in every single matchup. So don't think that this is not going to be any different. It will be. And unfortunately, if it does come down to kicking, then give me Auburn, because I'm not confident they can kick a field goal right now.
Coach, you've got 6 straight quarters without an offensive touchdown. After being able to watch the tape from Saturday, besides just execution, what things are you looking to get corrected in practice headed into Mississippi State?
Yeah, well, we know we have to correct. And I might as well just invite the Mississippi State's defensive staff in here if I told you all those things. One is we got to score touchdowns. I mean, 6 quarters and no touchdowns. That's pretty telling. That's not, what we're trying to accomplish on the offensive side. So we need to have better plays. We need to have better play calls. We need to have opportunities to score and create those on the offensive side. So we got to make plays. And we got to be a whole lot better. I thought 2 phases on Saturday against A&M played pretty good. And, offensively we did not. So that's got to be corrected. And, the players on that side of the ball, the coaching staff, it's pretty obvious, that we need to score touchdowns in order to win games. And, at the end of the day, we haven't done that well enough. We have another opportunity this week to go work on that and create that. Those things have to happen every single day for us. What I know about our team and our offense in particular, it doesn't just happen on Saturday. That's what I know. So if it's emphasized every day, if it's focused every day, if it's executed every day, then we'll have a lot better opportunity to not be, at the very bottom and not scoring points on the offensive side. So.
Good. How are you?
Man, I'm good, man. Blessed out of the favorite. I can't complain. Thanks for the time as always. All right. During the game, there was a point where Texas A&M had 2 pre-snap penalties. On TV, they mentioned that it's possible that Auburn could have been making sounds on defense. And after the game, Jimbo Fisher basically mentioned that it's possible that Auburn could have been simulating the snap count. Do you have any comment on from the stuff from CBS or the stuff from Jimbo there? And forgive me for having that.
No, that's the first I've heard it. It just sounds like a court case. It's possible. No, I didn't hear that. I didn't. I don't think that's anything that our defense was out there trying to do. I don't even know if they know the snap count. If our guys are talking, they're talking to each other. And sometimes, I know on the first one watching it, I know their offense was pointing at our guys. Then they had one right again on the second play, back-to-back. I think it was their left tackle. And I think he moved and just put his head down. Usually when a guy on offense moves and just drops his head, it's on him. All right, you just know, and most of the time, offensive linemen, they don't really sell it very well. Like, if they made the mistake, they just acknowledge it. That's most of their nature. Just take it, accept it. They move the ball back. And but no, I mean, that was even the environment there for when their offense was on the field, there's a loud hum in that stadium. So that's the first I heard of that either way. But no, I don't think that's anything from our side.
Mentioned on Saturday you had open competition at kicker. What's the response been like today so far?
We've had quite a few people
pay some attention, reach out to us. The biggest thing is I want to have, which we did this at other stops I've had, where basically you'd have guys walk on, and you can only do it when you're allowed to use a ball, which is during spring. And so, like, the guys that accumulate in January, you say, all right, we'll see you first day of spring, and you check out what they can do. But, we're in season now, so we can check it out if their NCAA papers are right. And anyway, we want to have a pile of kickers that are available that we cultivate, develop, and over the years, most of my kickers have been walk-on guys that have developed and improved to the point to where they become the starting kicker. And I remember one guy, and I have the utmost admiration for him, starting right out of high school. He went to the kicking tryout, and we cut him. We cut him for like 3 years. And he kept working, and, we cut him for like 3 years. He was a starting kicker for like 2 years for us, and it was really quite impressive. And he's, just became deadly accurate, grew a little bit. And so anyway, I just want to have a pile of kickers, and I want to develop them over time so that as they improve and elevate, they have a chance. I've also had a situation where the walk-on kicker played ahead of the scholarship kicker, which I'll do that without any hesitation because, whoever plays the best and helps us be successful is the guy we want out there.
Okay. And have you spoken to either of your guys that played on Saturday about your post-game comments about the kicking tryout? And are you concerned that they've impacted their confidence, or do you think it kind of gave them a chip on their shoulder?
I don't know what it did, but the thing is that there's a ball and you kick it, and it really doesn't matter if a bunch of 7-year-olds are watching or if 5 million Mongol warriors on horses getting ready to shoot their bows and arrows at you because, you approach the ball and kick it. It's as simple as that. But I do want to have that depth, that we developed. And I just got to thinking about it that we hadn't done that. We hadn't done that here, and it's just kind of automatic, as they would come through, and there'd be a list of about 40, and some would kick it worse than you would think, like worse than you can, for example, and well, okay, but some were even worse, trust me, and then some were quite remarkable. And those you'd keep around, kick drills, and then they'd work, develop, and then 2 years later, boom, there's your starting kicker,
All right, buddy, that's all I got on this episode of the show. You got anything before we hop off the line?
No, I appreciate you jumping on early. And like I said, if any coaches get fired later today, apologize. We didn't know about it. But taking the girls over to Asheville, North Carolina, going across enemy lines here and have us a nice dinner and get out on town. So, but I'll be back on the Pick'em show because I'm feeling pretty lucky, Mike. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying making all this money.
Yeah, I think the listeners are enjoying making all that money fading our picks. So you'll have an opportunity to do that once again here on Friday. But I do appreciate you, Shane, hopping on the line. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.